Okay, I think I'll make a start, and then if anyone joins afterwards, that's no problem. So for those of you who have not had the chance to meet yet, I am Anna Clark, and I will be the assistant principal for Year 5 and Year 6 next year. So I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting you all as soon as possible. We are so excited to get the children back at WSO. I'm sure you're really looking forward to them coming back as well, and hopefully they're really excited too. We have been working really hard over the summer with KHDA and GEMS Corporate and the whole leadership team, as you can see below, to make sure that we have plans in place to safely integrate our students back to school. KHDA have agreed our plans, and we are looking forward to sharing these with you today and moving forward. And we just want to reassure you that every decision that has been made has been researched, it's been discussed, and it's been approved to make sure that it really is safe for our WSO community. So moving forward, we just want you to be reassured with that. We also today have with us Rebecca Lewis, who is the Vice Principal, and she will be answering any questions on the chat function as we go through, which I'll mention again in a second for you. So during this session, we will just go through the planning process for reopening, the parent communication that you can expect moving forward, the safety precautions and procedures that we have in place, things like dropping off your students in the morning, picking them up, what it would look like in class, and what it would look like if they were to get the bus to school, and the year group specific logistics. So for Year 5 specifically, what will that look like? What will the curriculum look like for our Year 5 students? The procedures in case a child shows symptoms of COVID or we have a confirmed case of COVID within the school, and frequently asked questions. Thank you so much to the parents who signed up to this session and already filled out the form with some questions. We have included all of those questions within the presentation today, unless it was specific to your child directly, in which case a member of leadership will be in touch with you. So hopefully any questions that you have will be completely covered today. But as I mentioned, Rebecca Lewis is in the chat, so if you have any questions, please feel free to type them and she will respond to them within the chat, or somebody will get back to you directly afterwards. As I mentioned earlier, but just in case you missed it, your microphones will be muted throughout, just to make sure that we can get through all of the content that we need to get through. But please do feel free to ask questions on the chat function as we go through. Just for your awareness that the session will be recorded so that it can be passed on to parents that couldn't join the session. If you're not comfortable with that, please feel free to turn your camera off, no problem at all. So just to start with our planning process and how we have come to these plans. So we were really eager to share our plans with you, but we needed to wait for our approval from KHDA. And then as soon as they were approved, we sent out our letter to parents with the information from Nathan Sadler. But we really appreciate your patience and your understanding whilst we waited for that approval. We know that you have been waiting for those plans, so thank you for that. In terms of parent communication and what you can expect from us after today's session, where you should hopefully feel really confident moving forward with your child returning to school, we will also be offering some additional Zoom sessions with the teacher and with other members of staff and leadership, just to make sure that you feel reassured with the plans of our reopening. Additionally, over the coming days, when you find out your child's class teacher and the details of their class, you will also be sent some videos so the students can start to get excited and find out about what it will look like when they return to school and who their class will be. In addition to that, you'll have a parent handbook related to COVID-19, which will further explain the process and the procedures. And you'll also be offered a face-to-face or a remote meeting with your child's teacher before the start of term to make sure that your child feels confident and happy returning to the class. So I would just like to talk about some of the safety procedures and precautions that we have in place for the start of term. As mentioned, we work closely with KHDA and GEMS Corporate and followed international best practice to ensure the child's safety during this time. When you drop off your student at school in the morning, there will be 2 thermal cameras in primary, which means that anybody entering the building will need to have their temperature checked, and nobody with a temperature of 37.5 or above will be allowed to enter the building. We also have staggered the start time for all of the children within the school so that we don't have too many children entering the building at one time. And in line with that, we also have a one-way system to avoid children and parents passing each other in the corridors. The children and parents who will be coming into the school will follow the 2-metre markers on corridors to remind us all to social distance while we're in the building. Masks are mandatory for anyone 6 years or above, so all of Year 5 pupils will be required to wear a mask at school throughout the day. And if the children are in Year 5, they will walk to their classroom independently with the support of members of staff who will be placed around the entrances to assist any children who need it up to school. If the children are in FS1 to Year 2, they are allowed to have one adult drop them to their class, but they are only allowed to stay in the building for 10 minutes, and the classroom doors will be open so that the children can go straight into those classrooms. We also have sanitising stations on all corridors and within all classrooms to make sure children keep up their sanitisation. Then once the children are in class, we will divide those children into smaller support social distancing bubbles or learning groups. In every single classroom, the children will be a distance of 1.5 metres between themselves and other students and teachers at all times. We will be reminding children to regularly wash and sanitise, and the toilets in each corridor will be cleaned after every single use. And we will have cleaners at every toilet station to make sure that does happen after every time they use the toilet. Teachers and students, as mentioned, will all be wearing masks at all times, unless, of course, your child does have a medical reason to prevent this, or when they do PE. They will not need to wear a mask when they are doing PE. However, you can request for your child to not take part in PE. Please do contact me if that is the case. Classrooms will have a deep clean every single day. Any resources that we use within the classroom will also be sterilised after every single use and left for 30 minutes between uses to make sure that they are clean before children use them again. They will have their own pack of resources which they won't share at all. So they'll have a tray which has things like scissors and pens and pencils, etc., that they won't share with anybody else, and they will keep them in their locker with them. Any materials that can't be sterilised have been removed from all classrooms, so things like cushions, carpets and sand trays, etc. So because they could not be sterilised, they've been removed completely from the classrooms. And then when it comes to lunch times, children in their classrooms will have lunch at their designated table, which they will keep throughout the day to make sure children aren't cross-contaminating as they go to different tables. Again, these will all be a distance of 1.5 metres. The only time that children will leave that classroom is to go to PE, where again, within the large space that they have, they will still be able to maintain a 1.5 metre distance and will not be taking part in any contact sports. They should, on the days that they have PE, come to school within their PE kit, and they will not be changing at school as the changing rooms will not be in use. So they come to school in their PE kit and they will go home in their PE kit. As soon as that weather is cooler, we'll start to allocate outside break times to give them time to get some fresh air. However, it is too hot for them at the moment. But when they do go outside, they'll still be within their learning groups and within their bubbles, so that they do not come in contact with the other group in the other class. When it comes to pick up, Year 5 students will make their way out of the classrooms on their own. They'll have a designated exit, corridor and staircase to come out of. If you'll be collecting your child at the school, please arrange a meeting point with them outside one of the building entrances, but within the school gates. So anywhere outside will be fine. We really appreciate that at the moment the weather is very hot, to not be able to come inside the building and wait for them, but due to the number of parents and students, we can't have parents inside the building to collect. So just to reiterate, please make a meeting point with your child outside of the school building, but within the school gates. Come September, when the children rejoin us, we will have a really strict staying at home if you're unwell policy, which will be enforced. We are going to ask parents to check their child's temperature before bringing them to school, and that is really crucial because any child showing any symptoms of COVID-19 will be taken to the clinic, and I'll follow that up a bit later. In terms of STS bus service, if your child will be getting the bus to school, they will be operating at half capacity, and on each bus there will be seating markers to ensure that children social distance on the bus, and there'll be signs strategically placed to encourage hygiene and waste management. They will also have their temperature taken before they board the bus. And again, if their temperature is above 37.5, they will not be able to board the bus and come to school. And the standards of hygiene will be very high on the bus. They will sanitize the seats, the seat belts, the armrests, etc. And that will be repeated when the children leave the bus. This has been planned and approved in accordance with the RTA guidance as well, so that we know the buses are completely safe for our children. So when it comes to year 5 and 6, similar to year 3 and 4, we are really limited on our bubble sizes. We do not have capacity within the whole school to have every child in school 100% of the time. And based on parent feedback and teacher feedback, we've prioritised FS1 to year 2 pupils on the basis that they require more support for remote learning. So therefore, year 3 and above, so that will include year 5, will be able to access our learning through a blended approach. They will spend 50% of the time in school and 50% of the time at home. This will be over a 2-week block, and they'll be in school on alternate days. That means that over the course of 2 weeks, they will be in school for 5 full days. And that will look similar to this. So Emerald and Diamond classes will be in Group A, and Ruby and Onyx classes will be in Group B. That would mean on week 1, on Sunday, Emerald and Diamond students will be in school learning face-to-face, whilst Ruby and Onyx students will be at home doing remote learning. And then on the next day, on Monday, they would swap over, and Ruby and Onyx will be in school and Emerald and Diamond will work from home. Therefore, over the 2-week block, they would have had 5 days of face-to-face learning in school. All classes will be capped at 27 students, and each class will have a teacher assistant and a teacher. For the days that the students are here, they will be split into 2 groups or 2 bubbles, and they will be a group of 14 and 13 pupils, but no more than 14. The teacher will be in charge of the planning and the delivery of the lessons, but the teacher will be in one room and the TA will be in the other, and they will rotate because the classes will be next to each other or opposite each other. During the days where your children will be at home, they will be doing remote learning, which will be a combination of asynchronous and synchronous learning, and lessons similar to Term 3 through Zoom, Microsoft Teams and Seesaw. And there'll be a lot of live elements of that throughout the day to support your children and ensure that they have full access to the curriculum and the lessons that day. So what that will look like within the classroom is, if your child was in 5A, that class would be split into 2 rooms, Learning Group 1 and Learning Group 2, a group of 14 and a group of 13. Throughout the lesson, the TA and the teacher will rotate between each group, and the teacher will deliver the lessons. They will have planned the lessons, and the TA will just support the pupils within that room that they're in. They'll stay in that bubble, and it will be all adults that move around, not the children. But again, they'll be 1.5 metres apart from each other, and specialist teachers will be coming to the classroom to deliver the lessons rather than them go to specialist lessons themselves. When we return to school, our curriculum will have a really strong focus on the well-being of our students. Some of them might be quite anxious about returning, and we want to ensure that they are feeling safe and confident, and we address their feelings and their concerns to help develop their personal and emotional skills. Our pastoral team will also be on hand to support us with that and ensure that all students are guided and supported. All our students will have access to the full Year 5 curriculum, which includes specialist lessons, the only difference being that they won't go to the specialist classroom as before, and the specialist teacher will come to them, PE being the exception, where they will go to the sports hall to have their lesson. In terms of assessment, we will continue to use Classroom Monitor, and teachers will assess your child's progress and their next steps for learning as usual when they come to school. In terms of school timings, for Year 5, our drop-off will be at 7:45 a.m. So we will require the students to be here, ready to go to their classroom at 7:45 in the morning. And as usual, pick-up will be 3:20. Your children will come out of their classroom. Previously, we used to finish at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, but due to the traffic and the amount of students that we have, we will continue these timings on Thursday as well to ensure that we're staggering the times that those children are leaving the school. If you have a sibling, if you have another child in the school, then all class teachers will be ready to welcome students from 7:20 a.m. If you need to drop off your youngest child earlier, the teachers will be ready to take your children from 7:20 a.m. Your younger child can also stay with their class teacher in a sibling club until 3:30, if that is the case as well. If your children are in different houses and you'd like them to be in the same house and you haven't had any contact with me yet so far, please do just let me know and we can make that work for you. So I'm just going to talk through if we have symptoms of COVID or if we had a confirmed case of COVID, what the procedures and protocols are for that. So if a teacher were to recognise some symptoms of COVID in a student, they are completely responsible for referring them to the school nurse for further screening. So that includes things like headaches, cough, body aches, etc. An adult will be called to take the child down to the student nurse, down to the nurse, and there will be a first aid trainer for each house to treat minor injuries. That just reduces the amount of students that will need to go down to the clinic, and we can keep that for any COVID symptoms. If a member of staff or a child begins to show symptoms of COVID while at school, they must get isolated instantly. The parent of the child will be notified immediately, and the patient should be referred to hospital if it seems necessary. And we've designated isolation rooms within the academy for those children to be in. If your child is unwell, we will call you, and you'll have 30 minutes to come and collect your child, but they will be kept in the isolation room until you can collect them. For this reason, we really are asking you to make sure that your child does stay at home if they feel unwell at any time. That just means that we won't need to be calling you to pick them up if they are not feeling well. If your child is sent home because they are not feeling well, they should not return to school until they've received a PCR result that is negative. If the result is negative and there is a clinical assessment of probable COVID case, the patient should complete a 14-day quarantine. That means that if your child is still displaying symptoms, even though they've had a negative test, or your child has been in direct contact with somebody who's tested positive, you will be required to keep your child in quarantine for that period of time. If the result is negative and your child is not showing any symptoms and they have not been in direct contact with anybody who's had COVID, then they may return to the school as long as they have got a negative result from the PCR test. If your child does test positive for COVID, the traced contacts of the patient, including the teacher and the classmates or colleagues, are all considered to have been in close contact. So that's anybody who has spent more than 15 minutes within 2 meters with the person who had tested positive from the day of their symptoms or the day that they tested positive. So they should all commence the 14-day quarantine counted from the day that the patient tested positive. So that means that if there is a positive test, anybody who's been in close contact with that person, whether it's a teacher, a member of staff or a child, will also need to complete a 14-day quarantine to ensure that they are safe to return as well. Now, there might be certain circumstances where you have questions. So, for example, my child's class are having to quarantine for 14 days. How would they access the learning? So if a whole class needs to quarantine for 14 days, due to the reasons that we just spoke about, the whole class will immediately switch to remote learning with their class teacher. So the same platform and format that we used in term 3, all children will be set up on Seesaw from the beginning to enable this to happen at any time. They can switch from face-to-face to remote learning immediately. My child has to quarantine for 14 days, but their classmates don't need to. This would be in a situation where your child has a negative COVID test, but still displays symptoms of COVID-19, or they've been in contact with a confirmed case outside of school, we would still require your child to quarantine for 14 days just to be safe. If this is the case, your child will then access remote learning for your year group for those 14 days. And then as soon as that 14-day quarantine period is over, they can return to class as normal. All staff are going to be trained on this, and we have a designated health and safety staff member to handle any emergency situations or any concerns that you may have. All protocols and procedures will be shared with you again in the parent handbook, so you have those to refer back to if you have any more questions later on. So you may have signed up to start the term for 100% remote learning. This is an option, and there are different options that you can choose depending on your family circumstance and your preference. If you do choose the 100% remote learning model for your child, this is what it will look like. They will be a member of a class, but they will join another class for remote learning as well. So I'll give you a scenario just so that you can put it into context. So for example, Ibrahim is in 5A, but he has opted for 100% remote learning. He's in Emerald and therefore in Group A. Group A are in school on Monday and Wednesday. So that means on Sunday, Ibrahim will join 5F with their remote learning. And then on Monday, he will join back with his class 5A whilst they do remote learning. And again on Tuesday, while 5A are in school, he will join 5F again for remote learning. Therefore, he will always be within a remote learning class and have a teacher throughout the whole day to guide and support his learning. His teacher in 5A will be responsible for his assessment, his reporting and his feedback, and will be the point of contact for you as a parent. If he does decide to come back into school, then he can join at any time. If you could just let me know, and we need to work on a 5-day notice period. So if you could let me know 5 days before that you would like your child to return, and we can organise that for you, no problem. If 100% remote learning is something that you're interested in, but you missed the sign up for it, no problem at all. Please just get in contact with me and we can arrange that for you. So some frequently asked questions that have popped up previously. If my child receives SEND support, how will this work? So if your child receives one-to-one support from a learning support assistant, then Lisa McCauley will have been in touch with you or will be in touch over the next coming days with more information about this for you and what that will look like for you. If your child receives level 2 support in class, then this will be discussed with your inclusion teacher at the beginning of the year and the class teacher. There will still be level 2 support in place, but it will be slightly adapted due to the restrictions on movements and bubbles, but that support will still be in place for those students who need it. As mentioned, if you would like your child to have remote learning, 100% remote learning, then you can just get in contact with me and we can talk through the options with you. If you need to change your child's house because our sibling is in a different house, again, please just contact me and we can make that work and arrange it. If you have a child younger down in the school who is under 6 years old but would like to wear a mask, that is absolutely fine. However, it is not mandatory for all children under 6 to wear them, but that is absolutely your choice. What if there is another national spike in COVID-19 numbers, and is the school prepared? We absolutely are prepared. We will have all students set up on Seesaw and accessing all the platforms they need within the first week, so that we can ensure that classes are ready to revert to remote learning if they need to quarantine or if we go into a lockdown again. So they'll have absolute access to that and we will move to 100% remote learning if that were the case. Will students keep a 1.5 metre distance? Absolutely. Throughout the whole school, students of all ages will be keeping a 1.5 metre distance in any classroom or space that they are in. However, we will support our students to achieve this because it will be new to them, and we have guides and stickers on the floor all around the school, and the teacher will be modelling and supporting them to do this. We know how adaptable our children are and how able they are to adhere to these things, and we would really appreciate your help talking to them about this before they come back to school so they know what to expect. Will there be big group events in school? Unfortunately, at the moment, with the current situation, large events at WSO will need to be cancelled. for example, house assemblies, our theatre productions, and large events like that. It's really sad, but we know that one day soon, hopefully they will be able to return and we can get back to those incredible events that we are proud of. But for now, they will be cancelled. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm just going to pass over to Becky Lewis to see if there were any questions that popped up throughout that we could clarify for you right now, or if there was anything that was unanswered.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for your time today. I know there's a general question about attendance and students who are in primary and secondary. Please do contact Ms Clark, as she stated, if that is a question regarding what house your child has been allocated, or if you have siblings in secondary as well. Apart from that, there's still a couple of questions I'm responding to individually, but Ms Clark, I think that you've covered everything, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much, Becky. So I really hope that you are feeling reassured and confident about sending your children back over the next 2 weeks. We really cannot wait to see them. Again, if you have any questions, please get in contact with me and I can answer them. And we really look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully. And I hope you will have a lovely day. Thank you.